Hello everyone. As Dr. Keys just introduced me, I'm Laure Pailleau. I'm the Child Participation and Policy Officer in Your Child, meaning that I mainly work with children. I'm very lucky to be in direct contact with children. And I also do on the side some policy work. Unfortunately, Your Child, we don't have much capacity as the Ombudsman Office in Croatia to work on this topic, but we are relying on our amazing member that we have across Europe that do work on the topic, and that's why most of the presentation I will and most elements of the presentation I will share today are coming from our grassroots organization, our members on the ground. So, to start with a bit of context about who Your Child is and what I'm going to base my presentation on today. First, Your Child is a network of organizations working for and with children across Europe. Every year, we are publishing a flagship report. It's our annual publication that compiles funding from our members on the ground. The report I'm drawing information today was published last year, and it brings together input from 57 members from 31 countries. Out of those, members from 21 countries specifically reported to us on environmental rights and exactly the right for children to a safe, clean, healthy, and sustainable environment. So what I will be sharing with you, it's not a policy analysis. It's really what civil society organizations are actually seeing on the ground and what children have reported to them directly. In Your Child, our legal anchor that we are following is the UNCRC General Comment 26, adopted in 2023. But thanks to Gisela, I was discovering a lot more legal frameworks, so I will really look into it. I'm sure my colleagues working on policy already did, but I'm mainly focusing on child participation. So I'm discovering a whole new world here. It's really interesting. Thank you for your presentation. Um, yes, that's it for the first slide. So now I will talk about the policy gap and the fact that children are usually not in the frame of policy work. So I will start with the big picture from our members. The main finding is that while many European countries are starting to address environmental challenges, regarding to climate. They do have climate strategy or adaptation plan, but most of them still don't have comprehensive policies that specifically protect children's environmental rights. There is a big gap between environmental legislation and what is actually done for children. Two things keep coming up from our different members in different countries. The first one is that Article 3 of the Convention, the best interests of the child, is not respected because all environmental decisions that affect children and their best interest should be considered every time in such decision. That means, as Astrid was saying, that there should be a child right impact assessment every time we're doing this kind of policy. Unfortunately, this is not the case and it's not happening in practice yet. It might happen in some countries, but not in all the EU. The second problem that arises often is that even where national framework exists, they don't translate into concrete measures at local level. To give some example, in Spain, there is a national plan that mentions vulnerable groups, which is good, but there's no concrete local measures to protect children environmental rights put into place. In Albania, there is an environmental protection law, but there is nothing specific for children in this law. Also in the Netherlands, there is simply no law or policy in place to ensure a healthy environment for children. And in Germany, our members said that climate protection and children's rights are frequently overlooked in national policies. So it's not only one or two countries in the EU, it's very all around Europe that we see that. So the pattern is clear. Children are often invisible in environmental decision making. Before I talk about participation, I think it's important to understand what children are actually experiencing on the ground, because this is the context in which we're asking them to participate. So our member documented serious and very concrete harms, for example, across Belgium, Bulgaria, Croatia, Kosovo, Poland, Romania, Malta, and Scotland. Pollution continues to pose severe risk to children's health. In Poland and Kosovo, for example, burning woods and coal contribute to very poor air quality, and this particularly affects children living in deprived areas. In Bulgaria, they have the highest premature death rate due to particulate matter in the EU. This is one our sources is the UNICEF Children Climate Risk Index. And in Romania, children also face inadequate access to clean water and sanitation and exposure to hazardous waste. Again, it's not over the whole country, but in some cases. So we really see the imbalance between all children. Then when it comes to climate events, they are becoming more regular in the reality of children. For example, in Greece, heat wave, drought, flood, or fire forest happen every year. And in 2023, the Court of Justice of the EU actually found that Greece has been violating the EU directives on air pollution in Athens for many years. So there's still a lot of work to be done there. Or for example, in Croatia, extreme heat and rising sea level already making some coastal area less habitable. But members that we have on the ground said that no appropriate responses are coming from the authorities on this topic. So why does this matter for a conversation about participation? It's because these are not future risks. They are current and violation of children's right to health, to life, to development, and to adequate standard of life. And these are the children that we're asking them to participate. This is the reality that they live in. So now I'm going to talk about children's voice, how they are concerned, active, and often not being heard on this topic. I think this is probably the most important slide of my presentation related to the topic of this conference, so I want to take a little more time here. What our members show very clearly is that children across Europe are not passive. They are deeply worried, they are speaking out, and in some cases they are contributed directly to international processes, but the gap between the engagement and the actual meaningful participation in decision making is still very wide. I will first start with the level of concern from children, giving you some key data that we receive from our members. In Hungary, I was very happy to see, and also sad for them, but 90% of young people report feeling some level of anxiety regarding climate change. So it's almost all children in the country. In Wales, 75% of children said that governments must take action, and 70% of them said they're worried about the world they will inherit. In the Netherlands, again, 70% of children are concerned about climate change. And in Serbia, eco-anxiety among children was documented by our members. So this is not a marginal phenomenon. This is something children are experiencing across Europe in very different national contexts. Now, despite this, the children are also active. So this is a really a positive aspect, because research, for example, from the Netherlands in 2023 found that children are active in climate movement precisely because they are frustrated that not enough is being done, and they want to speak out about it. And when they are giving a space to contribute at international level, they do it meaningfully. So there are actually good practices and good mechanism of participation that exist in Europe. Also, for example, in Northern Ireland, Ukraine, and Croatia, children were able to contribute to the drafting of the UNCRC General Comment 2026 on children's rights. Or again, in Scotland, in the same year, civil society report to the UN Committee on the Right of the Child that children say very clearly, we want to have a same decision about the environment and climate change at local, national, and also international level. So we really see that the children are really active across Europe, and it's a very good thing. Now, what we need to do is to listen to them and to give them spaces as Astrid presented with the Laura Landy model, give them meaningful spaces of participation. This was quite a positive trend, but we also have some more worrying trend in some countries. For example, again, it's not generally the whole country, but it happened, for example, in Germany, that young people who participate in peaceful climate protests, that they were met with heavy-handed policing, physical violence or detention, or even criminalization just for speaking out on this topic. and this is a direct violation of Article 13 and 15 of the Convention, the right to freedom of expression and the right to peaceful assembly. So children are being punished for exercising their very right they have here to discuss. Also, in most countries, Portugal, Northern Ireland, and many other, our members simply report that children views are not integrated into environmental policy, including children's voice remain an aspiration and not a reality. So we really have differences between what the children want, what they try to express, and what the reality is on the ground. So it's really our role as adult, as organization, institution to support them and to give them the space to do it. Now, I think I will echo to some of the previous presentation that we had about vulnerable children, but there is several findings from our members that I think is really important to highlight, especially when we talk about participation, because environmental harm is not equally distributed. Unfortunately, it touched the children, the most vulnerable children, even harder than the other. And this makes also participation gaps even more serious than they were already are. For example, across Belgium, Germany, Romania, Scotland, and Malta, there is a very clear pattern. Children with disadvantaged background face greater exposure to environmental harm. In Scotland and Belgium, for example, you can see on the slides that children with low-income family are disproportionately affected by poor air quality, often because they live in a very urban areas where there's less access to green spaces. In Romania, our members specifically describe what is happening to Roma community as environmental racism. In Germany, groups most affected include minority children, children with disability, and children from poor background. In Malta, they also tell us that children living in poverty suffer most from heat stress because they can simply not afford air conditioning. And it's not only happening in Malta, it's happening in a lot of countries suffering from heat waves in the south of Europe during summer. And this inequality is also has a specific dimension for indigenous children. The UN Committee on the Right of the Child itself recommended that Finland evaluate the effects of climate action on Sami children, recognizing that the impact is different and they need specific attention. So when we think about child participation in environmental decision, we need to ask which children, because the children who are the most at stake are often the ones that have least access to participation mechanism. Now, to conclude, we are with everything that our 21 members told us about this on the topic. My colleagues working on the policy and advocacy aspect, they developed some recommendations that I will present with you here. So the first one is to guarantee meaningful child participation. This means it's not just consulting children on paper, but also ensuring they have a real say in environmental decision at local, national, and international level. We are starting to work on this. I can see it. I'm working in the EU environment with children, so I see it's happening. But I think we still have room for improvement in those practices, and it's also what children are saying to me on the topic. I'm actually writing a new report on child participation after consulting 150 children across Europe, and it's one of the things that they say, like, they are often consulted, but they have a really big struggle seeing the outcome of their participation. So it's really something that we adults, we need to work on. Guaranteeing meaningful child participation also means creating safe space for children activism and making sure that peaceful protest is protected and not criminalized. At EU level, it also means ensuring children, especially those from the most affected communities, are included in EU Children's Council, for example, like the EU Child Participation Platform or the EU Youth Advisory Board. Our second recommendation is strengthening legal and policy frameworks. Every decision that affects children's environment should include a child rights impact assessment, the upcoming EU strategy for the generational fairness, should embed children's right to a safe, clean, and healthy and sustainable environment. And the UNCRC General Comment 2026 should be systematically adopted into national legislation. It is there, it exists, but most governments are simply not applying it. So we really hope that national governments will take those comments a bit more into consideration in their national policies. And the third one is the environmental education. Our members constantly report that education on environment rights is missing or underfunded in many countries. Um, if I remember my own experience at school, when we were taught about environmental rights, it was very little. It happens maybe once a year for a 1 hour class, and I think it's really not enough. And children are asking for more about this. Because without it, meaningful participation is simply not possible. Children cannot engage in decision about the issue if they had not had the chance to learn about it. So school needs to be funded to teach this, and civil society also needs to be brought in to support this as a partner. That's it for me. Thank you for listening.